Nick, I did one with Nick Griffin. Like Nick started a podcast and I went in person, we recorded the whole thing and it didn't record. And then he just never did a podcast. Yeah, like he just was like changed his mind on podcasting in general.
He's like,
because
I quit comedy now. That was too much. I'm going to go to law school. So you have a special coming out.
Yes.
And you're on tour now?
Off and on. Yeah. I mean, I go out like for like Thursday through Saturday and then come home for 4 days and then go back out. And then I have like a couple weeks home or vice versa. I try to kind of constantly touring, but trying to be home more when possible.
Like a rock star.
Yeah, that's me. I'm a rock star. Yeah.
And
you can feel the rock star vibes.
And your wife, Sarah, is a comic as well. So does she also have some, do you guys ever, are you like ships passing in the night?
Sometimes. I mean, she comes in the row with me a bunch and she'll open for me. But now she's getting a lot of her own headlining stuff. So we're on the road together less. She's in Philadelphia right now and I'm home.
Nice. Okay. So the structure of this show is I ask everyone to walk me through a pivotal gig in their career that helped them get to the next level. So I was wondering for you, would that be your first time on Letterman? You've done a ton of stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Letterman was definitely the most pivotal, it felt like, or certainly in my mind, at least mentally.
How did you book it and what led up to that? And were you nervous? And how did you, decide your set and all of the questions?
Oh, great. There's a lot there. So I've been doing stand-up for when I did Letterman. I've been doing stand-up for a long time, for like 12 years. And I was drinking like heavily through most of that 12 years. And then I had always wanted to be on late night because that felt like what a comedian does. And I was always really, really bitter about not doing late night. And then I got sober in like this late December 2012. And, you get sober and you start to reflect on your life and decisions. And I realized I had been very bitter about not doing late night television. And then I realized that I'd never actually tried to do late night television.
I had a similar experience where I was extremely mad that I wasn't getting the comedy jobs I wanted I couldn't watch SNL. I hated everyone that was doing comedy. And then I got sober and was like, oh, but I haven't been doing comedy. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, it really is like so obvious, but you kind of like open your eye and you're like, oh, I've literally never submitted a tape or put together a set or anything. I don't even know how you get on a late night, but I had spent like 10 years being upset because I really thought that they would just come and knock on my door and be like, okay, it's time for you to go on Letterman. So anyways, I got sober and then I went to Gary Gulman, is a friend of mine and one of my favorite comedians, and he was shooting Letterman. And so I went with him as his guest and hung out backstage. And then it was there that I was like, I should really try to do this. Why couldn't I do this? And I was thinking about that the whole time. And then we met the booker there and he said, he gave me his card and said, hey, if you ever want to submit a tape, here's my card. And I went, great. And so then I put together a set. Like I went and recorded 5 minutes at the Comedy Cellar, I think, sent them the tape and kind of started the process. And they would take like 3 weeks to write back, and they would write, this joke we like, this joke we don't. And it was a lot of back and forth with making new tapes, which was very frustrating. And then at one point they were like, we saw you do this joke about McDonald's that we love, we want you to do that. And I was like, can I talk about McDonald's? Aren't they like a sponsor? And they were like, no, you can. And then I submitted that. And after like 2 months of working on that set, they were like, it turns out you can't make fun of McDonald's. And so and it was one of those things where you're like, that's what I told you. But so we went back and forth for a long time. And then Letterman announced he was retiring. And that really threw like a wrench in everything because he had 1 year left. And so all these comics wanted to come on and he wanted to get all his favorite guests on. And basically we stopped hearing from them, the bookers, for like 3 months. And my manager at the time was like, we have to just move on. They're just not responding. And I was so frustrated that I said, no, I've never asserted myself in my whole life, but I was like, Get them to write no. I want a written no. Like we've had back and forth
Yeah.
for like 6 months. And I was like, please make them write, just kidding. He can't come on the show. Like, I don't want it to just be ghosted.
Right.
And I was like, please just go and get them to write something back. And literally, it sounds like a movie story, but the next thing they wrote back was a date. I feel like they were just like shamed. And then they sent me a date to do it, which was very thrilling. And I believe, I could be fact checked on this, I think I'm the last comic to debut on the Late Show. Like
Oh, how
other comics
cool.
did it. Like Norm Macdonald was the last comic to be on, but I think I was the last guy to do his first late night on Letterman.
And so when you were actually there, who did you bring with you in the green room?
So I brought Gary Gulman, who had come,
Nice.
I had gone to his.
That's a
And
nice, like, full circle experience.
yeah, that was great. And Nick DiPaolo, who had been like my comedy dad, I opened for him for years. I don't condone everything he says. I feel like Nick is so controversial. I have to make that note. But he's a great friend of mine, and I love him. And then my wife came, and then my parents were in the audience. So backstage was Gary Gulman, Nick DiPaolo, my wife Sarah Talamash, and my manager Maureen Taryn.
And did you say your set exactly the way you planned, or were you like, hey, McDonald's? Like, did you have any last minute verbal explosions?
No, well, I did flub a line. I've done 5 late night sets, and 4 of them I've flubbed a line at some point, just because you get so like jacked up, and I'm like, duh. So I did something like that. I don't remember what it was. I haven't watched it in years, but
Did they let you redo it?
no, I just kind of had to live with it, and just had this weird
See,
like
that's kind of
moment.
messed up, because those are live to tape. If like Jimmy Fallon messed up, they'd be like, oh, wait, Leslie, we can do it again.
Yeah, well, I think there's a story about I think Sebastian Maniscalco actually, which really makes me feel good whenever I do a late night. He just froze evidently for like an extended period of time and just
Wow.
started the whole thing over. I think if you messed up bad enough, you could be like, I gotta do this over again. Essentially, it was exactly what I had submitted, but I mean, it was terrifying.
I bet. But I know you're open about having anxiety, which I have through the roof. And
Right.
how do you rein that in for stand up? Because even normal people that aren't sober and don't have anxiety and depression would be nervous doing that.
It was me. I was really, really afraid of having because I have like anxiety, and I also have panic disorder, which I haven't had a panic attack in years now. But there's been times in my life where I was having like a panic attack every day, and a panic attack where it's like you have trouble breathing and I can't get air, and I shake like violent, like literally like on the floor shaking, like I can't. It's just out of control, like a true panic attack. And
Mm.
I have had that times in my life, and I was really worried that that would happen at Letterman, which is like my worst nightmare, that they're like, you're on. And I'm like, I can't go out there. And Dave is,
You're going to pull a Sebastian Maniscalco.
yeah. Or just, I'm like, I won't be able to stand up out of the green room. So,
Yeah.
and whenever I would watch like the movie Comedian, they kind of follow Orny Adams on Letterman, and I would watch him like get on the elevator, and I would have like an anxiety attack just watching somebody do that. When it came time and I was there, and I thought about getting like, I used to have a Xanax prescription because I had panic attacks all the time, but I hadn't taken one in years, and I was sober. So I was like, maybe I'll just get Xanax so I can have it in my pocket. I won't take it. And I decided against that. But for whatever reason, when I was there, I kind of had it's the most Zen I've ever been, where I was in the green room and I was like, okay, right now I'm just hanging out in the dressing room with friends. There's nothing to be nervous about now. And then when it was time to go down, I thought, well, I'm just walking down the hallway to an elevator right now. There's nothing to worry about here. I'm just walking down there. And then it was so I kind of did that really truly one moment at a time, where I was like, I'm just on an elevator right now.
Mm.
And then waiting to go on, I thought, I'm just waiting to go on right now. And then there was a great moment that took me out of it, that one of the stage hands was like, hey, so where are you from? And he just started kind of small talking. And it's an interesting thing about late night TV is the comedian is the only nervous person, because the other guests are A-list celebrities. Letterman's there every day. The whole staff and crew, they're just there every day. This is just their job. So the comedian's losing their mind. Everyone else is kind of just at work.
I've heard that Sir Laurence Olivier threw up before every performance. So I bet a lot of actors are nervous, even though they're on camera all the time.
It could be. I mean, that's a good point too, because they're probably more comfortable acting than they are on a
Right.
couch with a comedian, I guess. So anyway, but the guy, the stagehand guy, at first I was kind of annoyed because I was like, this is my big moment. I can't make small talk. But he was like, oh, you're from Massachusetts. Wow. Oh, how about the Patriot? And we started talking football. And then it was like, okay, 5 seconds. But it took me out of it to be in that conversation. And then once I went out there, I just thought, well, this is stand up. And the best piece of advice I got that really helped me, my friend Nick Griffin, who's another wonderful comedian, I was calling everybody for advice beforehand, and Nick said, "My advice is that you don't need my advice." He's like, "You don't. There's nothing you need to."
That's so deep. That's
It
very
was it was
Confucius.
really helpful because he was like, it made everything smaller because I just kind of was like, he's like, "You don't need advice. You do 5 minutes of comedy.
Right.
That's it." I find all anxiety is it's the actual thing is never as bad as the anxiety itself.
Right. Do you find that anxiety, or I don't know if this is more of a like meta question or or a literal one, but do you find that anxiety can ever go away? You have all these specials, you're on Netflix, you're, making moves all over the place, but do you still get nervous?
I never get nervous. I shouldn't say never, but almost never get nervous for performing. I never really got performance
Maybe
anxiety.
I might have misspoken. Nervous is not really the same thing as anxiety, right? Like I've never needed to like go to the emergency room because I can't breathe because
Right,
I'm
right,
nervous.
right. I mean, I still get anxiety. It's much, much, much better. But it's definitely not gone, and I don't think it'll ever be gone.